Welcome to Decoding Leadership, where we break down the elements of humane and effective leadership. I'm your host, Jade Rubick. Today I'd like to talk about a concept that I call reflected power. And this is something I never really had anybody share with me. It's something I had to figure out myself. The main idea is that you can leverage the power of the people above you. You can use their positional authority, even though you don't personally have that authority or that power. All of us have the ability to influence the outcomes much more than we realize. And often our managers or other people in positions of authority can use their authority and their power to further the projects or the goals or the outcomes that you're trying to deliver. And so if you ever find yourself in a situation where you feel like it's a struggle to accomplish your goals because you lack the authority, I think you'll find today's talk really interesting. So, what is reflecting power? The basic idea is that you use the person in a position of authority, you use their power, their positional authority, their history with a company, whatever sort of position or power that they have, you can use that. And the basic move is just to ask them. I find it kind of surprising that people don't do this more often, but you can do things like you can ask them to introduce a topic in a meeting. You can ask them to show up at that meeting and basically bless the project or give some sort of context that helps people understand why what you're doing is important to the organization. But you can fairly explicitly have the person say, they can basically lend you their authority so that people understand that what you're doing is important. You can ask them to give a presentation. You can ask them to give you a temporary role or title, or to kind of give you some sort of cover or give you a mission in a public way. These things are very low cost generally for a leader. I mean, giving a presentation is a little bit of work, but asking somebody to say a few words, or you can ghostwrite an email for them and have them edit it and send it out. That type of effort it's very low effort. And if they see that their interests overlap with yours, then this is something that can just make you much more successful. Now, it does really need to be clear that this is worth their time. It needs to be something that they care about. And the amount of overlap needs to be commensurate with how much you're asking of them. But basically, the idea is, instead of using your own authority or your own legitimacy, you can reflect it up through the leader down to the people that they have some sort of influence with. Now, note this can be done from multiple sides. This can be done in a networked way. If you're trying to influence the organization in a particular direction, sometimes it can be really helpful to have, 2 or 3 people in positions of legitimacy say something that allows for a conversation to happen that maybe wouldn't happen otherwise. So you can do this not just with your own manager, but it can be somebody further up in the organization. And you can even do this with peers. Let's say you have a peer that's been with the organization for a very long time. That is a type of legitimacy and power that you can make a request of. You can say, hey, so we're thinking about doing XYZ, and I know that you think this is a really good idea. Would you be willing to introduce the topic and talk about why you think it's important at this next meeting or whatever? I do want to point out this is a tool in your toolbox. It's something you probably don't want to overuse, but it is a valuable tool and it's something that can help you be more effective. This is also closely related to delegating up or delegating laterally. Those are closely related terms. Let's say you are a head of product and your engineering counterpart is just really stuck in the weeds, dealing with a lot of fires and doesn't really have a plan for what sort of technical changes need to happen over the next year. You don't want to do this unilaterally and sneakily, but let's say your team really depends on that planning because you're trying to basically integrate the perspectives of engineering. And absent that, the engineering concerns just always fall to the wayside, and you know that that's a problem. You can talk with the head of engineering about that, and you can work with them on that, but a way that you can kind of delegate some work to them is you could say, well, in a month, I think we should give a joint presentation on the plans, and why don't you give a presentation on the engineering part of that? Is that something we could work together on? If you're partnering with them on it, even though you're actually delegating a fair amount of work to them, and you do need to, of course, give them a lot of context of why it's important and why it's worth their time, etc. But that's sort of like creating a presentation to fill a need within the organization for clarity. That's like a way of, you're basically assigning work to your peer. And so I think sometimes we get very stuck in this hierarchical thinking, and we get this perspective that like delegation always goes down and you can't ask for help on the way up. And weirdly, what I see with a lot of people interacting with their managers is that the only way that they really ask for help of their managers is they ask them to solve problems for them. And I think it's actually often better to use their influence to give you more ability to solve the problems yourself. Like that's actually a smaller ask, and it can actually make you more effective. So that's the idea of reflecting power. I also want to note that when you are in a position of authority, you can create space for people to delegate to you. For example, I've done this a couple of times, I have explicitly given people room to delegate things to me. I'll kind of explain that there are certain classes of things that they can delegate to me. And in particular, I've noticed that there are things that hit certain groups of people harder than others. And I've basically wanted to be able to solve those problems when those come up. And so I've explicitly asked, hey, if you're seeing this type of problem, it's a little unfair that you solve that. And I'm trying to solve this on a kind of system-wide basis. So when you see that, please delegate that to me, and I will do what I can to improve it. So this is a way you can kind of deal with unfair situations in the workplace and so on. But you can do it for a lot of classes of problems. So that's the idea of reflecting power. Super curious what thoughts this brings up for you, and let me know what you think. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Decoding Leadership. As always, I welcome your questions and feedback. And if you're looking for coaching or advisory help, you can contact me at rubick.com. See you next time.